Welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari and Jack for the second Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. Make sure you're listening to Wes over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel. You're reading Omari Sankofa II on the Detroit Free Press. You're reading and subscribe to the Motor City Hoops Substack, completely free. And of course, you make sure you're subscribed and watching everything that our guy joining us today, Pistons Jack, is putting out. And you're following him on Twitter. You're subscribed to the YouTube. Where else can they follow you, our guy?
It's just Pistons Jack everywhere, pretty much same handle. I'm really excited to be here. I'm super excited to be with both of you, so excited to chat Pistons.
Tom Herr, our guy, says we're live. Yes, we are live. Colin Wood says, what's up, boys? Listen, guys, it's September 10th. We're still a little bit of ways away, O2, but this is going to be a fun, exciting episode. Really excited to have Jack on here. He brought me over on his recently, so make sure you guys go check that out. We talked about Jaden and Ivey, we talked about Ron Holland, and we talked about Tobias Harris for about 20 minutes or so on each of those guys. And I know you have previews over almost every player, right, Jack?
Yeah, we did so far the 9-man rotation, and I think everyone's kind of agreed on. So we might go a little bit deeper. We'll see. If a potential player signs, who I won't name, but yeah, no, we previewed a fair few. So check it out if you're looking for some content.
When's off-season over, man? Like you said you were on vacation for a couple more days. You got a couple weeks. Like when are we getting back to Omari Sankofa II? How much does off-season have left?
You know, he's got a little bit. Like I'm almost on an off day, so you know he's kind of at the end of his rope here. Yeah, I was off Monday and Tuesday. One of my closest friends got married this past weekend, so wedding was Sunday. I took Monday off, and I was like, I might as well take Tuesday off because you know it's Tuesday. I feel like that's just a bad way to go back to work. But I'm about to take the off season off my name. We are like 19, 20-ish days away from training camp. I feel like I blinked and like we lost pretty much all of August. I know you're in school now again, Bryce. So, you know, it really is far. It really is far. We need to get into season mode.
Yeah, I'm coaching high school football. The Chiefs are losing games. I'm pissed off. The Lions are losing games. Lions fans are pissed off. Pistons Jack, are you a Lions fan? Have you got into the Lions fandom? Or are you a fan of it? Are you a football fan, American football fan at all? Or
no, I'm not going to pretend I'm a Lions fan. Obviously, my Twitter timeline turns into a bit of a Lions feed for the first until the Pistons start. So I like follow it through that. There's a bit of the Tigers last year with their playoff run, but no, it's pretty much just the Pistons for me. I like the NFL. I enjoy it, but I'm a very, very, the most casual fan you'll find. Like I'll have it on in the background.
Jack, I have all of those words muted. I have Lions muted. I have Dan Campbell muted. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I have it all muted. And it's not because I don't dislike the Lions. I just don't want it clogging my feed for those multiple hours on Sundays or throughout the week. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Detroit. I'm sorry, but no, thank you.
I will say just quickly after that, I think the loss to the Packers, that did give me a brief insight into some of the early season meltdowns we can see on social media.
Yes.
From even like Pistons Twitter. I'm guilty as well. So it kind of got me a little bit ready for the Pistons season for some of the overreactions. But I hope for all the Detroit Lions fans, they can turn it around. And it's just an early season loss where they're trying to figure some things out.
Our guy Kyle Metz says, I can't stay, but I can't wait to listen. Obviously, you guys need to be following Kyle for...
Appreciate you, Kyle.
He's the Pistons salary cap expert, along with our guy Keith Smith, who's the NBA cap expert at large, O2. So anything else, O2, before we get into... We're going to start here, Cade and Ivey. We're going to talk to the other guys on the squad, especially the young crew here. And then we're going to have some fun trivia at the end, see if I can get it right this time. But anything else before we get going with that, O2?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to listener of the pod, V. Clark. Ran into him at Dally in the Alley in Detroit last weekend. He walked up and said, what's up? And we chopped it up. So big shout out to V. Clark. You know, I always say this, Bryce says it, but if you ever see us out in public, feel free to say what's up. Always happy to chop it up and shout you out on the pod. Bryce obviously is in Kansas, so I don't know how many local listeners are going to be crossing paths with him, but he's also 6'6", so he stands out a little bit more. So
yeah, no, they don't care out here. My family, my friends do not care. So let's get into this, Jack. We talked about this a little bit because we talked about Jaden and Ivey, but I want to start with Cade Cunningham and Jaden and Ivey. And I do want to start here. What are your expectations? No, let me go back a little bit. Jack, what have been your expectations since the duo was drafted over, a couple of drafts, back-to-back drafts, and then they got healthy? And then have those changed any throughout the last couple of years? What were your expectations for the duo in that backcourt? And what are your expectations for them in 25-26?
So I was huge. That 2022 draft was kind of the first draft I paid attention to, did some research on. And I really, once we found out they were going to fall to 5, I was all in on Cade and Ivey. And that was because I think him and Cade offensively have a really complementary skill set. And, and I think to date, we've seen that play out. The results in win-loss haven't been the best at times, but I think with Jaden, I think he's become a pretty solid to good off-ball scorer. We saw the uptick in three-point shooting. Definitely has things to improve upon handling the ball and finishing. But I think the big thing is just being as well, and we've discussed this with all the young core, Jaden misses half a season, Cade misses a whole season. So you haven't really got a massive, you do have a decent sample size, but then there's the historically bad season thrown in there where the roster was a mess. So I would say so far, if I'm just being completely honest, it probably hasn't lived up to the expectations I thought, but I don't know whether or not that's entirely fair to Jaden and Cade. I think offensively, like I said, Cade is going to be, I don't think he's truly a heliocentric player, but I think we kind of saw him lean more into that last season and the results were pretty good for the team and him personally. So I think for this season, my expectations are Cade to be who he was and for Jaden to try and fit in more and thrive and potentially pick it up defensively with Cade. But I just want to see 40 games where they play together with a functional roster around them, which I think the Pistons have done a pretty good job of, to see if that backcourt as your starting duo can actually lead to a 45 to 48, 50 win team on that kind of pace, if that makes sense.
Oh, too, what are your expectations? For you, whenever Cade gets drafted, then J.I. gets drafted. I know we were ones that were really pushing J.I.'s first step and we thought it could work together. What were your expectations then? Have they changed based off what we've seen thus far?
Yeah, I think the expectation was always that J.I. was the player who had obvious physical gifts, particularly with his speed and size at 6'4", as a player who's going to be carrying the ball a lot. And I think we've seen that through 3 seasons. But obviously the big story last year was just the efficiency boost. Him knocking down almost 41% of his threes, I think 46% overall. And that's what you want to see, right? I think Cade's the type of player where theoretically you could put pretty much anybody next to him as long as they have complementary skills. And that's what you want from a Cade backcourt mate. Somebody who can handle some secondary playmaking, somebody who can pressure the rim in ways that Cade can't. And, I think the at-rim finishing starts to get better for J.I., but it's just the toolkit that he has. But, I think really for next season, even just beyond his ability to get to the rim, you want to see him continue to knock down threes. And, if he can do that, there's certainly not too much to worry about as far as whether or not him and Cade can thrive.
Jack, you guys both have kind of outlined how we, and I would agree with you guys, have envisioned this pairing to work. I guess my question then is to you, what have been the things that concern you about the pairing? What have you been that's a little bit clunky and you're really watching for this year to see? What do you want to see this year that makes you go, yep, this is going to work together. This is a really good pairing?
I want to see the two of them. I want to see J.I. and Cade to an extent, but I think the thing with Ivy has probably just been the consistency. The numbers last season bear out well, but I think there's times where he can just, as a scorer, the efficiency can really drop. And I know the three-point shooting was 40% and it might come across to me being harsh, but I feel like he can go on these really crazy hot streaks for 5 to 6 games, but then there can be some lulls there. And I think for J.I., it's more about, can he just consistently every single night give you 18 to 22? If the jumper's not falling, consistently get to the line or develop a more efficient way inside the paint to score consistently if the three-point jumper's not falling. Because I think that, and Bryce, I think you did a study, I think it was for conference finalists, the second scorer averages around 20 points. I can't remember the exact date range on that, but I think J.I., it's just, I know he averaged around 17 to 18 last season, but it's more about just doing it consistently and efficiently and figuring out some more things in the paint at an efficient level and getting to the line even more consistently to ensure he can be that secondary scorer. Because I envision him on this team for the moment as that starting two guy. I know, Bryce, you've spoken about him potentially being the sixth man, but I think for JI, that's the thing I'm looking at. Can you get into the paint, finish more efficiently, and then just lower the turnovers and pick it up on defense a little bit? And for Cade as well, I'd like to see the defense pick up a little bit because I think he's got even more potential than JI on that end, but he's obviously carrying quite a load on the other end.
Real quick to reference what Jack referenced, I went through a study of the last 10 years before this season, the 4 conference finalist teams. And I looked at their number 1 score, their number 2 score, their number 3 score. And the average bared out for all 10 of those years, which would be 40 teams. The average for the number 1 score was 25.8. The second score was 20.8. And the third score was 16. If you just go the last 5 years, so 20 teams, again, not including this last season, the number 1 score was at 25.5, so relatively the same. 21.3 for the number 2 scorer, 16.5 for the number 3 scorer. So it's trending up just a touch, but you're looking at 25 or 26 for your number 1, around 21 for your number 2, around 16 for your number 3. O2, what for you would you need to see either from Cade or JI or the combination of them? What are you most looking forward to say, hey, this makes me really believe in this pairing moving forward?
You know, for what we've seen from them offensively, and Jack obviously, kind of pointed to them kind of taking turns getting hurt over the last few years, which, I think clouds the data a bit. But I don't really have too many concerns about JI's shot. Like, I always thought he had the potential to be a pretty good shooter. And even if he doesn't sustain 41%, I mean, realistically, anything above 37, I think you're pretty happy about, especially if he's shooting it with volume, which, he did do last season. He's not going to lose his first step. I think as his shot clicks and, Cade continues to get more attention, we'll see some of those ad percentages go up. So there's not too much on offense that makes me think there's anything to be concerned about. It's really just the defensive aspect. And I do think having a guy like Asar in your starting lineup, kind of makes that a little easier for them, because now as JI, you're not picking up the lead ball handler to save Cade from it. You might be picking up that second guy, or even third guy, depending on what you're trusting Cade with. So it's just defensively for me. Like both of those guys, as you said, Jack, have the potential to be really strong on that end. I think we've seen moments from JI, but it's just the technique and discipline. He has to take a step forwards, and he certainly has the tools to be an impactful player.
Cloudy says, Jack would get hella points on Around the Horn for that answer about JI. I agree. Jack, do you know what Around the Horn is?
Yes, I do. But didn't they end the show, or it's wrapping up?
I think I just didn't know. I think it's over now, right? Okay, so go ahead.
I just want to jump in because I think Omari raises a great point about Asar there with this duo. There's this data from the horrible season after they traded for Fontecchio, where I think just before it was post All-Star break, it's only like 10 games, but the starting 5 was Cade, Ivey, Asar, Fontecchio, and JD. And they finally got someone who could kind of play the 4. And that lineup, that 5-man unit actually had like a +5 net rating. So like quite a small sample. It was something I would always reference back to, but you have shooting at the 4, you got Asar at the 3 to defend, then you have Ivy and Cade plus JD. There is a bit of data there to show like that can be a really successful group of 5. So I'm excited to see JI with Asar this season as well.
YouTube user says Ivy also needs to get to neutral defensively, like 100%. Like there's definitely some more growth that needs to happen on that end. I want to end this part of the conversation in terms of these two guys. We'll get into some of the other guys, including Asar, more in a second, with this question. And I'll read it off to you guys, and that'll give you a chance to kind of figure out where your answer is. What do you think the upside is for these two in the East? So if you just go through the East, the Cavs have Mitchell and Garland. Celtics have Derek White and Jaylen Brown. The Knicks have Brunson and Bridges, or depending on who they start. Pacers are when a healthy Halliburton and Nembhard. The Bucks backcourt is all over the place. The Magic have Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane. The Hawks are Trae Young and Dyson Daniels. I saw you got to meet the little brother there, Dash Daniels. That's pretty cool. Chicago just locked in Giddey. You have Kobe White there. Miami Heat, Norm Powell and Tyler Hero / Davion Mitchell somewhere. The Raptors have Emmanuel Quickley and what would it be? RJ Barrett. The Nets have rookies, The Sixers have Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jared McCain, Hornets with LaMelo Ball, the Wizards, young guys. Like, as I rattle off those names, guys, where are you like, how many of those did you say like Cade and Ivey, I think, can be better than those guys? Or how many did you say, where do you think they would slot in? Jack, where was your kind of position there?
I think if I'm being like realistic and rational, I'd probably Cavs duo. I have to put the Celtics ahead just because of what they've proved with White and Brown. I'll probably got to put Brunson ahead, and I'll give the Pacers a slight nod, even though that kind of pains me a little bit because they did just go to the finals and were incredible. But I think they're right there. Like the Bucks, Magic, even Hawks, I have Cade and Ivey ahead of, and I think they'll be clearly ahead of them this season, if not already. And then I think it's about entering the conversation of Halliburton, Nembhard, then that Brunson and Bridges / whoever. I think I just got some leeway for the Celtics and Cavs right now because of the success they've had regular season, definitely, and obviously Celtics in playoffs.
O2, what about you as you kind of just listen to me rattle off those backcourt duos in the East?
Yeah, I think Cade and J.I. definitely have the potential to be among the top units. I am really intrigued by the Hawks because, if there's a guy who basically addresses all of Trae Young's weaknesses, it's Dyson Daniels. I think he's still a pending, not restricted free agent, but, extension eligible.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, Trae Young's in his own contract situation as well, being extension eligible. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so they've got some big decisions coming up, obviously, but I feel like Trae Young has almost become underrated. Actually, no, I feel like he's underrated. Like, I'll just say straight up, I think he's become underrated. I think he's the type of guy who's like the ultimate engine, and obviously he's not giving you anything on defense, but if you could build a roster to make up for that, I mean, he's absolutely elite, and I see a lot of potential there. But beyond that, I mean, I think you could put the Pistons up there with pretty much any other backcourt in the conference. I mean, you've got Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs. That's going to be a really good backcourt. They've got a couple other I'm probably not thinking of, but especially if J.I. sustains what he did last season. And Cade obviously giving you, 26 and, 10 and 7 or whatever he averaged last season. I feel pretty good about saying the Pistons should be able to go toe-to-toe with any other backcourt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at those teams at the top, and they just won a little bit more in the playoffs. Even though the Cavs haven't made a deep run, they've made it a little bit further. But, this Magic backcourt is interesting, but neither of those guys are near what Cade Cunningham is. And, even with the Hawks, well, I just think that combination does make sense. Like you said, O2, like Cade being the level of player he is just like, an X factor. I mean, it's not an X factor, but like it's the factor that just always gives you the chance against any duo. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But I want to get to some of the other interesting young players on the roster. And I will give you some prompts and we'll talk about what we are going to feel about those statements at the end of the season. But we'll get into that right after this.
All right, we are back with segment 2, and we're going to get a little bit into what we believe our takeaways will be at the end of next season.
Yeah, so I'll give you a prompt, Jack, and then obviously O2, I'll go to you. And then I just kind of want to give me your prediction of what your takeaway will be on the prompt, okay? So Jaden Ivey's future in Detroit. What do you think your takeaway is going to be on that 9 months from now?
Bryce. That's a spicy one.
Listen, the whole... I don't write the outline. Wes wrote the outline. So when we get to trivia, whether it's good or bad, you blame him, okay?
Okay, so Jaden Ivey's future in Detroit in 9 months. I think he will still be on the roster.
Long-term contract before you're essentially having to call your shot on an extension over the next couple of months.
This is actually really stumping me. This is really tough. I'm going to say he's here long-term.
Okay.
I don't feel great about it. But I'm going to say there's a deal they agree to. I'm going to say he signs a long-term deal, but I don't know if that means he's going to be here long-term.
Okay. So Devon says, my wife is making me watch Demon Slayer so I can watch this live. I don't know what that is, but I think...
Anime. It's anime, Bryce.
So she's making him watch that. I don't understand this, but thank you. It sounds like a big compliment, I think, right?
Shout out to Devon.
It's a good looking show. I'll say that.
He said he can't watch this live because he's having to watch. Okay. As long as you listen later, Devon. And Derek, I will get to your super chat. Thank you so much. I'll get to that right after O2 answers this about Jaden Ivey. So, Omari, Jaden Ivey's future in Detroit at the end of this season. So 9 months from now, what will be your biggest takeaway about Jaden Ivey's future in Detroit?
I mean, I think he's with the Pistons beyond next season. I think the main question is obviously, does he sign that extension, this offseason before opening night, which I think they have until October 20th, or is it a restricted free agency scenario next summer? And I'd be curious to see how that shakes out. I think, there's J.I.'s an interesting case because he played 30 games last season, right? So even beyond the Pistons aspect of it, if you're a J.I., you look at next summer and you've got at least 8 teams with cap space. Nobody had cap space this summer, but next summer you're actually going to have a little bit more of a market. You could come out and, be a top 3 guy for a bona fide playoff team. Maybe that increases your margin a little bit. So, I think his future is in Detroit, but I'm just curious to see the path to get to that point.
All right. So Derek Brown, thank you so much for the super chat. We really, really appreciate it. He says, what are the chances Duncan Robinson starts instead of Ivey for the shooting? Remember, nobody's expected Tim Hardaway Jr. to start last year. If Ivey starts, I'm concerned about the starting lineup 3-point volume. Love the show. So real quick here, guys. Tim Hardaway Jr. was at 7.6 3-point attempts per 36 minutes last year. Jaden Ivey was at 6.2. Here's my quick answer. I understand what Derek's saying. I don't think you can start the season that way. If you told me there's a world where 30 or 40 games into the season that this potentially happens, I'm more willing to listen to that, but I understand where his head is at with the question. Jack, what says you?
So I've been thinking about Duncan Robinson starting because I think no one expected Tim Hardaway Jr. to start last season from memory. I think you said that, Bryce. So if there is a surprise starter, my thinking is, and this might be crazy, but Duncan starts instead of Tobias.
Okay.
And I don't think that will happen, but if there's a surprise starting lineup, that was my thinking, because I do actually agree with Derek that the 3-point shooting volume isn't maybe what it was last year. I think it could, Duncan being the starting lineup wouldn't surprise me. And if they said Tobias, we're still going to play you 26 minutes, but we'll bring you off the bench, I probably could see that more so than Duncan for Ivey.
That's interesting. I mean, I think what that would be is that would definitely be a J.I. would have to be good defensively is what I'm trying to say there. Because Duncan is going to be negative, would be a negative on the defensive end. What O2 to the question, thoughts on Duncan Robinson starting in general, potentially for Jaden Ivey?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because, you're losing a lot of shooting in that starting lineup with Tim Hardaway Jr. no longer being there. And, could J.I. come in and kind of give you that same role? I think, Tim shot 37% from 3 last season on pretty good volume. And, to me, the question is just who do you bench, right? Do you give up too much size and rebounding if you were to swap Tobias with Duncan Robinson? Probably. Can you bench a Sarr and survive defensively in the starting lineup? Probably not. So you do eventually come back to J.I., and maybe there's some thought of if he's going to, run the offense when Cade sits, maybe it's just more of a stagger situation and, J.I. could still crack 30 minutes coming off of the bench. Maybe he almost occupies that Malik Beasley role. It's just, almost like a change of pace guy off the bench. We're going into our rotation. He comes in and he'll be able to keep us afloat. So, I think it's an interesting thought. I'll be curious to see if it's something that the coaching staff has to tinker with just because you're not getting enough 3-point volume and the offense is sagging too much. We'll have to see. I think a lot of it comes down to how well J.I. shoots the ball. And, obviously a lot of it, I think, comes down to how well Cade shoots the ball as well. So, could be an evolving situation. We'll see how that plays out. But I think it is a fair thought.
Okay, back to some of the takeaways. Same question, but Jalen Duren, Jack, 9 months from now, whatever it is, end of the season, our biggest takeaway on Jalen Duren's future in Detroit.
He's here for the future, the foreseeable future. If you want to say, put a years on it, the next 2 to 3 following this year. I think he's got an extension. I think we've said this a lot. I think he's probably, it feels like the more likely to sign an extension before the season. But even if he doesn't, I'm still pretty confident that he will be here long term. And I think his defense continues on upward trajectory like it kind of did last year. I'm not saying he's going to be elite or anything, but I think he's trending in the right way. And I'm bullish on JD this year. And I think he will be here for the next 3 years, let's say.
I agree with you. I think he's the more likely of getting the contract. We talked about this. I brought out the Delta comment for Pistons Jack that my co-host over on Game Theory, Sam Vecini, loves to use. The Delta on JI's outcomes seems to be wider than the outcomes than JD's. And so I think because of that, JD's more likely to end up on a number. And I think for the next few years, I do think he seems to be somewhat established as a part of this. O2, what says you? 9 months from now, our biggest takeaway on Jalen Duren's future in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Duren was 21 years old last season and averaged a solid double-double. He's one of the league's elite offensive rebounders and lob threats already. His assist-to-turnover ratio crept toward 2-1. He averaged more assists, so his turnovers went down from the previous season. And his defense got better as the year went on, probably peaking in the playoffs when it mattered most. And that's, obviously an incredible green flag, especially for a guy that young. So, yeah, I think if he could find the right number for both sides, JD is a guy you absolutely want locked down. He's only going to continue to get better. He's obviously got great chemistry with Cade. And, center is still a valuable position. I think we probably don't see as many centers now kind of ink those types of extensions. But if you are ranking starting centers, he's, I think, in the top half at this point, and he's only going to get better. So, I think there's a lot of rationale for that.
Okay, before we move on to these guys, Aruna asked, do our extension eligible guys get more or less than Giddey? So Giddey got 4 for 100. I thought that was an interesting negotiation. Obviously a different point, right? Giddey is at the point where these guys would be at next year. Giddey got traded for Alex Caruso, who everybody just watched help the Thunder win an NBA championship. Letting that guy then walk in free agency or whatever would look pretty bad for a Bulls organization that already gets questioned about their decisions a lot. I think I've talked about where I would want these numbers to be. I would not love it above that number is what I would say. Jack, where are you at?
I think for JD, I would like it slightly less, but I've said 4 for 100 is what I would do. I think that feels fair for both parties to an extent, the Pistons and JD's camp. I think Ivey wants more. Whether or not he gets that, I'm not sure, but that's why I don't think his would happen. I think it's going to go to next summer.
Pistons Make Me Drink said, how much do you credit Asar for Jalen Duren's defense? I feel like once Asar got cleared, the defense got a lot better. There is part of that in terms of obviously, Asar makes the defense overall better. It definitely makes Jalen Duren's defense somewhat better because he navigates screens better. He's better at the point of tackle. I think Jalen Duren's individual defense got better irregardless of anybody else in what they were doing. So I think both things are true here to the question. Let's go on to Asar since we're already talking about him. Asar Thompson, what's our biggest takeaway at the end of next season? Jack?
I think was he 17 in your top 20 defenders list, you and Sam?
Yeah, 16, 17, something like that, which I'll be honest, I thought we were going to get pushback from people. I haven't heard it specifically on him the way I have heard other guys. And I was pretty bullish on him being in that range. And to be clear, if nobody's watched those, the top 8 was littered with big guys. So, he was right in a tier of guys of wing perimeter players in that range. So,
yeah. I think he's clearly established as a top 3 perimeter defender in the NBA. Where that lands him in the top 10 with some of the defensive talent, the center position, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel he'll be in that top 10 conversation, which is all defense, first or second team. I think we saw him in that playoff series against Brunson just show stuff that not many people can do, especially if he can figure out the foul trouble a little bit more. And then I think offensively, I think we'll be talking about him as the clearly defined second best Piston of the young core at the end of this season.
Love it. O2, what will we be saying about Asar Thompson?
That he's one of the most improved players in the NBA. I think he has a chance to be top 3 for the most improved award. I could see him having sort of a Dyson Daniels breakout where it's wow, this guy is this incredible all-around defender. And, he's producing steals and blocks and doing this and that. And I do think Dyson Daniels and Asar have some similarities as players. But, especially with the Pistons being in the spotlight, they're going to be the national spotlight, obviously coming off of a really good season. I think Asar's game just pops. I think him and his brother being twins will always be interesting. It's something that, casual fans will tap into. So I just see his profile overall rising. I don't know if he wins MIP, but like I said, I think he's got everything going for him to kind of have a similar season like Dyson had last season, just from a coming out party standpoint.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have that kind of defensive coming out party that Dyson had. I think one of the underrated aspects of Dyson Daniels' season is how good he was offensively. I often is somebody that's a little lower on Dyson's defensive impact compared to others. I mean, he's obviously one of the top defenders in the league and all defense level worthy. But like when people were talking DPOY for Dyson, I was like, sorry, I watched Cade Cunningham destroy him at the point of attack. And, so it was hard for me to do that. But I think Ausar could have that level of coming out party defensively. Dyson offensively was pretty good last year. And I think that's for Ausar overall to hit the thresholds you guys are talking about, which I don't disagree with, but I think it's really going to come down to what he does offensively in terms of improvement. Next one. And this plays right into what our guy Pistons Talk says. He says, hot take, Ron Holland could be the shooting guard of the future. He dropped that when we were talking a little bit about Jaden Ivey. What will we be saying 9 months from now at the end of the season on Ron Holland's future role with the Detroit Pistons?
I think he's going to show that he can be a starting level two-way wing, no question. Now, what that looks like for the rest of the roster and the moves, I don't know, but I think what we saw from him, the way he developed last season, I feel like you had to be someone watching most Pistons games to really see him evolve from the player we saw in preseason and the first few games to who he was by the end of the season. I think he put up like 28 against Pelicans teams, but it's just the way, the control he developed. Still got to improve on decision making, but you go to fast forward to Summer League this past July. There's clearly some real growth and improvement there year on year. And I mean, month to month, it felt like throughout the regular season.
Will J says, Pistons Jack, definitely a part of my Pistons Avengers. I love it. I love it. I asked Will J who else was part of that Pistons Avengers squad. So we'll see. 2, Ron Holland, what are we saying about the youngster and his future role 9 months from now?
Honestly, I think our general takeaway would just be that he's got it. It's tough to predict how big his role increases next season. It's tough to predict the extent that what he showed at Summer League carries over into the season. But I think he'll be better than last year. I think last year he was a bona fide NBA rotation player who found ways to make impact despite still figuring out really what he was doing on the floor. Like, it seemed like he was really just going off of instinct, and more often than not, it worked out pretty well for him. And I think this time next year, just what Jack said, we'll know for sure, this is a guy, who's going to be a two-way force for a long time. I don't know how much his role will increase compared to last season, but he's going to make the most of that role. If he knocks out a few more threes, if he shows he can handle more defensively, his finishing already was pretty spectacular last season, and I don't think that's going to decline in any way. Kind of like Ausar, I think he's got everything lining up for him to have something like a breakout year. The only thing holding him back will be Rowe, but he's had a good summer, and I think he's got momentum on his side.
Aruna says, I think Ron will take over as the heart of the team from Stu at some point. Maybe not this season, but eventually. He definitely has that attitude in a positive way and the right mentality. Okay, quick one here before we go to break and then get to trivia. Just call your shot. What do you think? Into the season, Jack, will we still be asking for a stretch big for this team, or will we have forgotten about it? Will we still be saying, give Cade a stretch big, give him a pick and pop big, or will the season play out in a way where that won't be a topic of conversation? What do you think?
I truly don't think it'll be too much conversation. I think some of that will be because I think Stu will start taking threes, but I even think this season he won't be treated like a true stretch big. It's going to take a bit more volume, but I'm a big believer in Cade with a role man, and that kind of goes back to why I think JD is going to be here long term, on top of the fact of his relationship with Cade in general. But I don't think the stretch big conversation is going to be too much of a discussion point.
2? Quick thoughts?
Yeah, I think out of necessity, he's probably going to have to take that jumper. But I agree that it may take some time for him to truly build that respect. A lot of that is just volume, right? I think the more you show that, it's not just going to be one, maybe two threes you could knock down in a game, but you could catch fire, knock down 3, 4. That changes the calculus a lot. So yeah, for him, if he earns that respect, I think everything else falls into place.
All right, we are going to go to a break. When we come back, again, Wes wrote all these trivia questions, so nobody yell at me. Jack, O2, don't yell at me because there's some doozies here, but we'll get into those right after this.
All right, back with segment 3, and Wes, who sadly could not join us tonight, left behind some trivia questions. Bryce is way to be our host. Jack, I'm going to warn you, I'm still smarting a little bit from my loss to, Bryce in this game not too long ago. And, now you're my opponent and I got to redeem myself. So,
all right, here we go.
Hopefully Wes is on my side. Like, I feel the spirit of Wes guiding me.
Guys, I'm telling you, Wes was on nobody's side with these questions. My guess is that the score ends up 0-0. So, all right.
All right, let's see.
Jack, I will let you choose. I'm just going to go in order of how Wes wrote the question so I don't get confused. So I will allow you to go first or second. So you can take the first question or the second question. Up to you.
I'll go first.
Okay. To the extent of his research, exactly one native-born Australian has ever been on a Piston roster. Name that player.
Aaron Baines.
That is incorrect according to this research. O2, do you have the answer?
Wait, can you repeat that question?
Oh, is it Cam Bairstow?
It is Cameron Bairstow. It is. So,
come on, Wes. Aaron Baines.
Was Baines?
I believe Aaron Baines was
he was on the Pistons
Australian, yeah.
In like that 15, 16, 17 range.
Uh-oh.
He was backup Andre.
Wes.
Yeah, he came in knocking down threes. He's from New Zealand.
Oh.
No.
His nationality is Australian, but he was born in New Zealand.
It says
Baines played on the Australian national team, won a bronze, I think.
Okay, let me
Australia, but he was 3.
No, hold on. He says native-born Australian in the question.
Well,
so what is that?
I still got Bairstow.
Yeah, I mean, what was your answer going to be, O2?
Doesn't matter. Jack had 2 guesses before I had 1,
So does Jack gets half a point, right, to make sure we don't tie? Is that fair?
I wasn't going to get it. Like, I could admit that. I guess we could do half a point.
All right. Okay.
Baines would have been my guess. It's okay.
I love it. Listen, the last time I did this, I completely screwed it up. So I was like, we got it. Okay. Omari, name the Aussie with the most assists per game in their career.
Kyrie.
Is Kyrie Australian?
He was born in Australia.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Kyrie. It's probably somebody completely different, but I'm going Kyrie.
Okay, so now you guys are making me question this again. Oh, no. The answer is still, Wes has it right. It is not Kyrie. Great, nice.
That'd be great. Deep cut. I'm going to say it's Josh Giddey.
It is not Josh Giddey.
That's a good guess. I forgot he was from Australia.
Yeah, it is Ben Simmons.
Oh, wow.
Man, I forget he's Australian.
There's a lot of secret Australians in the NBA. Wow, I should have.
Jack said that was such disdain as the fellow Aussie. Like, I'm not accepting him.
So Ben has said for years he was going to play for the Olympic team or the Australian Boomers and then always pulls out. So I don't actually care too much, but down here in Australia, a lot of people Ben Simmons isn't as popular as you think. The Australian basketball community.
Pistons talk. Jack doesn't even claim Ben Simmons. Listen, guys, those are really good answers because when you said Josh Giddey, I was like, oh no, I think Wes got it wrong. But Simmons' average is at 7.2 for his career. So we are at 0 for Omari, half a point for Jack. Jack, you are up. This former Piston sits 17th in the NBL history for points scored within a single season. So single season total points scored. This former Piston did this to be 17th in the history of the NBL.
This is awesome from Wes. So I'm going to say, is it Derek Walton Jr.?
It is not Derek Walton Jr. O2?
Repeat the question again, please.
Okay. This former Piston sits 17th in the NBL's history for points scored within a single season. So you're just looking for guys, former Pistons that played in the NBL that were bucket getters.
The core issue with this trivia is that my knowledge on former Australian players
is not great.
Is lacking. But the only Australian player I know that played for the Pistons is Aaron Baines. So I have no choice but to go with Aaron Baines.
If you get this Omari,
Pistons Talk also said Aaron Baines. How about 01? I'm out with coworkers and watching the pod. That is a real dad right there. That is real stuff. It is not Aaron Baines. Pistons Jack, you have another answer?
So I remember when I was at the NBL, we would go through all the former Pistons players, and I feel like I'm going to know this and it's going to annoy me.
So it happened in the 2013-2014 season.
James Ennis?
James Ennis.
Yeah.
James Ennis is Australian?
No. He doesn't have to be Australian. He just played in the NBL. We're off the Australian-born players.
Oh, okay. So he just did that in the NBL. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep. What made you catch Ennis there?
Because I think I went to, so he played for Perth Wildcats, and I think I went to a Wildcats game that season. I was like, who's he? And then he went, I think he was playing in Perth before he went to Miami, the Heat. And then I just remembered he was a Piston randomly. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the thought process.
Okay. So now we're completely off Australia.
Jack's just an Australian basketball historian. I have no chance.
It's not fair for Omari.
I have no chance.
Listen, we're off the Australian NBL kick. We're going completely different, okay? 3 former Detroit Pistons players have also played for the Philadelphia 76ers, okay? Former Detroit Pistons also played for the Sixers. Of those players, Andre Drummond actually has the 4th highest rebounds per game average in Philadelphia. Not with the Pistons, in Philadelphia. Can you name the players ahead of him? So players that played with the Pistons and the Sixers that rebounded the ball better than Andre Drummond for the Sixers.
Are we talking about total rebounds or per season?
It looks like he has per game.
Per game.
Yep. So played for both organizations, which Andre Drummond did. And there's 3 guys that actually average more rebounds per game than what Drummond has done with Philadelphia. So we're obviously talking big guys here. Rick Mahorn is not one of these answers.
Okay, I was like, I don't think he played for Philly. Maybe not long enough.
Jack?
This is like, these are unbelievably in-depth questions.
Yeah.
Oh, Rick Mahorn did play for Philly. Okay, I was like, I know he played for Philly. Okay.
Good for you, Omari.
He was there for 2 years.
This is like, I can't think of one.
So just think of big guys that played for Detroit and Philly.
I threw a name out there. Now
I will let Jack throw a name and then I'll throw a hint so we can at least get one right.
I'm blanking. I genuinely
Nazir Muhammad?
That is also not here.
Chris Webber?
Chris Webber is. Let's go. O2 right, gets on the board.
All right, that's one.
So we are one. The other answers are Derek Coleman and Daryl Imhoff. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not familiar with Daryl Imhoff. So
I got one of them.
You got one of them. I apologize. If I should know Daryl Imhoff, I am sorry. So
I just started thinking of journeyman. I'm like, who are some big guys who played for at least 6-7 teams, including the Pistons? I'm like, Nazir Muhammad, Chris Webber, like, who are the guys I played when I was in like...
You did a good job coming up with a couple of different ones. So, okay, yeah, now we're to Omari. Okay, Sheet or Sham. West was an Andre Drummond kick. I don't know what his deal was. Andre Drummond, while in Detroit, this is a Sheet or Sham, Omari, okay? Sheet or Sham. Andre Drummond, while in Detroit, tallied more stocks than Hall of Famer Bill Laimbeer. Is that Sheed or Sham?
I'm going to go Sheed.
It is Sheed. He had 1,750 and Bill Laimbeer had 1,489. What would you have answered, Jack?
I would have said Sheed because Andre used to be able to get so many steals. Like he would rack up like multiple steals a game often. So yeah, I was Sheed. That means it's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Sheed. It's like true or false.
Yeah,
Sheed is true. Yeah. I feel like I messed up the order here somehow. It don't matter. Okay, I'm an awful host of the trivia. Omari's at 2, Jack's at 1.5. Former Piston players, this is the last question, but I don't know how we got here, but we did. Former Piston players who have played at least one season with the Chicago Bulls, name the top 5 players who have the highest win shares with Chicago. So essentially, you're looking for players who played for the Pistons and Bulls that contributed to the most wins with the Bulls. Okay? So, and it doesn't matter what order. Like, it didn't matter if they went Chicago, Detroit, Chicago. They played for both organizations. Who are the top 5 players in terms of win shares for the Bulls, not for the Pistons? Okay. We'll go until I want to stop. So, Jack, can you give us one?
Is Rip Hamilton one?
Rip Hamilton is not one, but that's an interesting guess. Okay. 2.
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman is a great guess and not in the top 5.
What?
6.
What?
6.
What? I don't believe that. There's no way.
Listen,
I was so convinced he was number 1. That's crazy. Wow. Okay.
I can look it up because I know how to do this on B-Ball Reference now.
I trust Wes. I'm not.
So win shares. No, he's 6th, guys. Wes is right.
Wow.
All right, Jack. No, we're still going. At least you guys get one.
I felt so good about that one.
I mean, most people would.
The next name I had is definitely not going to be it. It was Ben Gordon.
Ben Gordon is.
That was going to be my next guess. Gordon was going to be my next guess.
Ben Gordon is 4th. Jack, guess again. Jack, guess again. You took the lead.
Who's someone who was really good? Derrick Rose?
Derrick Rose. Yes. That is the most obvious answer. Okay. Any more?
Okay. Another random one. Tony Snell,
not on this list. Okay, here's the thing. Tony Snell is like 17th. So like, it's not an irrational guess completely. 2, you got to get 2 of the final 5. You could get one of these. One of these guys played.
Ben Wallace.
You're going to be so pissed. Ben Wallace is 8th. What?
Man, I'm 0 for 2 on Dennis Rodman and
2 came up with the best names. And so Taj Gibson is number 1.
Oh, that's a good. Yeah, I didn't think about Taj.
Dave Greenwood, 2. Rose was 3. Gordon, 4. Orlando Woolridge was 5. And then Rodman, Scott May, then Ben Wallace. Drummond would be like, 11th here, and then you get into, Naz Muhammad. You mentioned that name earlier. Hey, there's Rip Hamilton way down the list. So he's at like 25 or something.
I only had 3 real guesses, and that was Dennis Rodman, Ben Wallace, and Ben Gordon. So I'm flabbergasted. No, it was not Ben Wallace. It was not Ben Wallace Pistons talk. I am flabbergasted.
So to your credit, Ben Wallace is number 1 for Detroit Pistons win shares of people that played for both organizations. Anybody want to guess who's number 2 of players that played for both organizations? Who's second?
Dennis Rodman.
No, he's 4th.
Is it Rip?
Derrick Rose.
Rip is 3rd.
No, he's not Derrick Rose.
It is definitely not Derrick Rose. Those were some bad years. It's Andre Drummond.
Oh, really? There you go.
Lesson learned, don't believe everything win shares try to tell you, I feel like. Is that our lesson from this trivia game?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, we just debunked that stat.
Yeah.
You can't just copy and paste win shares to just solve your argument.
That's what I do with some of the defensive metrics out there. I look for the first player that I'm like, that's completely irrational. And if they're in like the top 10, I'm like, okay, I'm not looking at this list anymore. So
yeah, there's some noise in that data. I don't know.
This is a blast, guys. For September 10th, I mean, I don't know. Hopefully Pistons fans enjoyed it. I'm not sure you can get much better content than Pistons Jack on the Pistons Pulse with Omari and myself. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, we'll be back moving forward here. We're about to get some real basketball to talk about. In terms of Detroit basketball, I realize there's real basketball going on, right now. But we're getting close. Off-season's almost over. Pistons Jack, let the people know where they can follow you, where they can find your work, everything, all the great content that you're putting out all the time.
No, thanks so much for having me on, guys. Just at Pistons_Jack on most social media platforms. That's it. But yeah, thanks again. This is heaps of fun.
And your YouTube. Make sure you're watching every YouTube video live that he's putting out over on the YouTube channel. Make sure you go subscribe so you don't miss anything. We'll be back sometime next week. O2, take it away, my guy.
Jack, big thanks for joining us. You are by far our favorite Australian Pistons content creator, and I feel comfortable saying always will be. So shout out to you, man. With that, big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and big shout out to Wes Davenport, as always, and we'll talk to you all next week.